Welcome to the People's National Congress Reform Press Conference for August 30th, 2024. Joining today's presser is Mr. Sherwin Holder, Member of Parliament, Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform, and Shadow Minister of Natural Resource. Also is Mr. Elson Lowe, Treasurer of the People's National Congress Reform and Economy. Today's press statement will be read in two parts, and we will start with the reading from the Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform.
Good morning. Good morning. This, yeah, I'll use it. I think we have the thing there. Um, PNCR. Good morning. PNCR APNU's road infrastructure plan will focus on both intertown and coast to hinterland highways. We often criticize the government for its excessive spending on infrastructure. Our main criticisms have pointed to the fact that this spending is being done at the expense of raising the living standards of the ordinary Guyanese, that much money is being wasted through sloppy work, poor planning, and corruption, and that, with few exceptions, much of the expenditure will not boost the productive capacity of the economy. As the next government, we will refocus, reorganize, and clean up infrastructure spending. Our infrastructure planning will be geared towards the achievement of specific goals and the development of specific economic and social activities, such as energy security, agriculture, and agribusiness development, community development, ecotourism development. Example, rehab of heritage sites, better airstrips, nature parks, etc. Leisure and recreation, gyms, parks, etc. Social services, geographic connectivity, and social integration through internet networks, coast to hinterland highways, interregional roads, etc. Climate resilience, better sea and river defense, etc. And for economic transformation by, for example, opening new areas for farming, mining, and industrial parks. For PNCR APNU, therefore, infrastructure development will be geared towards improving productivity, livability, and sustainability. In our first 100 days in office, we will table a policy paper, or what we call a green paper, with our suggestions for revamping the public procurement system. We will begin to implement the IMF recommendations on improving financial management and government expenditure. We will also examine the possibility of establishing a professionally managed state construction firm, which can undertake around 10 to 20% of projects, reducing the scope for corruption and improving capacity and project execution. We will fully activate the provisions for contract set-asides for small businesses, especially those owned by women, indigenous Guyanese, youths, and community forums. While our infrastructure development plan is wide-ranging, we would like to announce today to the Guyanese public two aspects involving transforming our road network. As the next government, we will build an intertown connection road network and a coast to hinterland road network. Our intertown road network, what first world countries refer to as intercity highways, will see the construction of paved roads linking Linden and New Amsterdam, Linden and Letem, Linden and Madia and Bartica as notable examples. There is presently no road link between New Amsterdam and Linden, Although these two major tongues are roughly 55 miles apart and serve vast catchment areas, we will build a New Amsterdam Linden highway. As regards the coast to hinterland network, we will focus on replanning, upgrading, or creating routes that connect, for example, Bartica to the upper Mazruni and the Essequibo coast to the middle Cayuni and the Northwest District. These projects will involve bridging the Essequibo River at several points. Work will be undertaken only after detailed feasibility studies, impact assessments, and public consultations. Unlike our political rivals in the PPP, we, as the next government, will spend the people's money responsibly and sensibly. Benefits of these two road networks include: one, easier access to mining, forests, and agriculture lands; two, movement of settlements away from the coast; three, increased interregional trade and travel; four, greater national cohesion; five, border security. Our infrastructure planning will therefore have clear objectives that are identified and evaluated upfront. As the next government, we will not be engaging in guesswork or half-baked ideas. Additionally, we are not going to be preoccupied merely with building infrastructure stocks. Instead, our core focus will be on providing infrastructure services to the people. So, for instance, our water wells and infrastructure stock must supply clean water to households 24/7, an infrastructure service. New roads and infrastructure stock, again, must help to reduce congestion and traffic accidents, an infrastructure service. Likewise, pumping stations must significantly reduce flooding. Sports stadiums and community parks must actually provide sports and recreation. That is what we mean when we say our PNCR APNU government will ensure infrastructure stocks translate into infrastructure services. Finally, the fact that the PPP government fails to understand these and other considerations explains why the large expenditure on infrastructure over the last few years has produced no corresponding gains. Nelson?
Thank you very much, Sherwin. Government continues to mislead Guyanese about the gas to energy project. 4 months ago, we in opposition echoed civil society and contractor concerns about the soil deficiency of the Wales gas to energy plant site. The government has been forced to admit that this soil is still being remediated. This means that the site was handed over to the contractor the better part of a year ago, and the foundation for the critical gas to energy plant has not been laid. The government needs to come clean to the Guyanese people about what exactly the problem is with the soil at Wales, and whether it may be necessary to relocate the plant. These site suitability issues carried over to the question as to whether the area is broadly suitable for industrial development, especially as it regards manufacturing plants with heavy equipment. This, ironically, comes on the back of the PUP saying that an assessment of the soil for all available sites was done, and that Wales was a good choice. The PUP even stressed that the site was also advantageous because there is land there available for an industrial park. It now appears that to develop such a park, that land will need some degree of costly soil remediation. With every passing day, this government's words mean less and less, and their incompetence becomes clearer and clearer. If such a critical soil assessment exists, which we doubt, we challenge the PUP to release it to the public so that it can be scrutinized. If this project can't even move beyond the soil remediation stage, citizens are left to wonder when it will in fact be finished. Already, the makings of another Jaglio colossal failure are emerging. The government must provide Guyanese with a truthful, realistic timeline for this project so that Guyanese can brace themselves for the electricity shortage that will surely stem from any lengthy delay. Failure to do so will only frustrate Guyanese further after a year of blackout calamity after calamity, which the government is squarely responsible for. As regards the arbitration process, the government must report on what legal preparations it is making. It is not enough to merely dispute the contractor's claims in the press. The government must have a clear strategy so as to ensure Guyana does not lose revenue through its incompetence and carefree attitude. Given that the third arbitrator has been agreed to between the government and contractor, it is likely that there is little time remaining for such preparation. We urge the government to make every effort to seek appropriate advice and representation so Guyana does not lose yet another 50 million USD. When it comes to such a massive project, the PUP's secrecy and misleading statements could not be more troubling. We are still to see even the agreements between ExxonMobil and the Guyana government for the supply of the related natural gas. We in the opposition are already bracing ourselves for the possibility that the PUP will leave us a project riddled with challenges when we take office next year.
All right. So today I'll be taking questions on the press statement only. You can go ahead as customary by the raise of hand and state your name and your media house. I have Miss Paris in studio. You can go ahead.
Good morning. Naomi Paris from the Ghana Chronicle. I have three questions for you today, if you would allow me to ask. The first, has the party already made any arrangements to honor its debt to the city council so far?
Miss Paris, one more. How it is followed, as I just stated, that we take questions on the press statement. That's what we're taking today. So if it's a question on the press statement, you can go ahead.
All right. So, given that you spoke about the plans for the PNCR ahead of the elections, with a particular focus on infrastructure, is there a future for the coalition?
Thanks for that question. I'm not certain that it is, but I see how you linked it to the press statement. Look, we have long said that we believe in coalition politics. It is, we think, as a party, it is the best thing for Guyana, given the nature and the politics of our country. We believe coalition politics is the future of this country, and we're interested in coalition politics. You will see us put out press statements, party policy positions. Those are our positions, but there is always room for us to collaborate with other parties and NGOs under that big umbrella, big tent, and taking that approach towards governance in this country. So yes, there is a role for coalition.
I'd like to also follow up on that because one of the things that we want to highlight is a common thread in terms of some of our coalition partners and certainly our policies. We talk at length about feasibility studies and really proper assessments. We've spoken and the AFC has spoken at length about the need for these studies. What's going on with the gas energy plant is that there was a study. The study said to locate the plant at Clonbrook on the East Coast. The plant was put in Wales, and now there is a real possibility that plant may have to be relocated because the study was not followed and a proper assessment of the soil was not done. That is 2 billion US worth of infrastructure. It is unacceptable for the government, and in particular Vice President Jaggi, who refers to these things as quote unquote no-brainers, to be dealing with such large amounts in such a cavalier attitude. We want to see the soil assessment so that we can see for ourselves whether or not there is an assessment and what exactly was assessed. It is really alarming that you're now looking at a project that is delayed and maybe even further delayed.
Mr. Adam Harris.
Yes, a very good morning, everybody. I want to talk on the gas to energy project too. First of all, what is the state of the project? It started, the gas should have been, according to the original plan, the gas should have been landed already. How far has this project really gone?
Thank you very much, Adam. Like what we're seeing, based on the recent releases from the contractor, is that they're still at the soil remediation stage. Now, when I visited the project, I think 4 or 5 months ago, they were at the soil remediation stage. And so really, it is seeming as if there's not been significant progress. That is what has raised, I think, so much alarm. It was also indicated to me that there should have been piling commencing already. But if they're at the soil remediation stage, then obviously you can't carry out the piling. This again implies further delays. One of the things we're even seeing, just something that GPL put out, which was surprising, is that they've canceled an invitation for bids for an additional 60 megawatts of power. Now, if it is that they're relying on this gas energy plant for all their needs and they're removing any contingency plans and the project is delayed, then that raises, which is why we're talking about the serious concern as to whether there's going to be another electricity shortage coming into the new year. The government needs to be clear to the people of Guyana. We need to see exactly what is going on with this project that made public. And Guyanese need to have a sense as to what exactly is going on with electricity for the next year. So as it stands right now, it seems the foundation has not been laid, piles have not been driven. The contractor can maybe come forward with additional information. But the latest that we've seen, I think a couple of weeks ago, they indicated is they're still working on remediating that soil.
Quick follow-up. The pipelines, the gas has to be pumped to shore. What is the state of the pipeline project?
Yeah, so the pipelines are still under construction. They will be finished by December of this year, according to Bexon. So that is expected to be completed by December of this year. One thing to note, however, is that the pipeline, because the whale site was not ideal, the pipelines will have to be longer than they would otherwise have been, and therefore they're much more costly. Some estimates put it at between 100 or 120 million US more expense because of the whale site. Obviously, if a pipeline is longer, it is likely to take a longer time to construct. So that's one of the reasons that the pipeline isn't already finished, or at least could be one of the reasons that you could say that the pipeline isn't already finished. So essentially, moving this project from what the feasibility study indicated is the best site to the whale site has come with a series of complications, additional costs, and now risks.
You will also have, Adam, if I can add there, additionally to the increase in capital costs, I believe you will incur also additional running costs, because with a longer pipeline, it will take more effort, more energy, more resources to get the gas from the fields to the plant. So there's also a running cost associated with it that we won't be able to avoid, and that will be continuous.
Mr. Chauvin? You're breaking up.
Good morning, good morning.
Yes, better now.
Yes,
Good morning.
can you say, first of all, how will the state-owned construction company that you're proposing will eliminate corruption and improve efficiency, having regard to historical experiences in Guyana? And secondly, I know that you said you're not taking questions outside of the statement, but can you briefly say whether City Hall will be whether the PNC will be taking advantage of the tax break that has been put in place by City Hall for institutional arrangements, and is Congress placed vested in a company called Micwa, to which the demand notice has been issued for the $6 billion.
I believe that he will take the question on the press statement today. We will have a presser where we can deal with the other things, but as I said, as we started, we will stick to questions on the press statement today.
Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Chabral. This government company will be bidding for contracts just the same as other companies, so it is not that they have an automatic allocation that will always vest itself, will always manifest. That's one way that will ensure that there is some level of control and level of competition here. And that, of course, reduces really your concerns around corruption. The other, I think, really important thing to note is that we believe that we need to strengthen the institutions in Guyana in order to be able to combat corruption in the country. And so, of course, we believe that the Public Procurement Commission must be strengthened. We believe that it must act more aggressively regarding its mandate and be leveraged in that regard. So, in terms of strengthening our institutions, it's one thing we're going to do. And in terms of ensuring there's competition, that's another thing that we're going to really look at.
Additionally, I think I said at the earlier presser that we will look to increase access to information. We will also look to act on the Auditor General's report, increase funding for that office, staff, and other resources for that office. So there are a series of measures that we will put in place. Of course, it boils down to the administration as well. Look, we have a leader who is deemed incorruptible. None of us here in the leadership of our party, I think fingers could be pointed to us. And so we have clean hands. When we were in government during the previous term from 2015 to 2020, I think we had a fair run there and a clean run there. Fingers could not have been pointed to David Granger, and I don't believe under an Aubrey Norton's leadership that fingers could be pointed to him as well, or will be able to point fingers at him as well.
Any other questions on the press statement? Mr. Adam Harris?
Yeah. Again to Mr. Lowe, about how much money has been spent on the gas petrol project to date? I know Mr. Patterson had said that this total project will cost, I think, nearly $2 billion. What is the anticipated cost the way things are going?
Thank you very much, Adam. The cost varies because the government has been adjusting some of the tail end elements, such as the power lines and command centers and so on, which they weren't talking about before, but which have become necessary for the project. So the cost is around about $2 billion US, but you may see some revisions on that cost, whether revision up or down. The pipeline itself has been pinpointed at around about $1 billion US in cost, and so you have some sense of the broader costs. The government, of course, was looking to get I think 670 something million US from the US Exim Bank, a loan that doesn't seem like it's going to manifest, but we still are waiting for the government to update the country as to that. And so, of course, that cost will be absorbed by the Treasury by payments from the Natural Resources Fund, amongst other sources. So that is the overall cost. We've already seen the government expend significant monies on it. And we've, of course, seen the operator expend significant monies by the end of the year. If the cost of the pipeline is $1 billion US, you'd anticipate they'll have expended that. So that is what the cost looks like currently. However, one of the things that we are anxious about, and this is why we want the government to look closely at this arbitration matter, is that the arbitration will be an additional $50 million US cost. However, I think that you can perhaps kind of tell that if the project is going to be significantly delayed because the foundation soil is an issue, that we may be looking at a cost overrun. The question of the size of the cost overrun is really one that we have to look closely at. The other cost to this project that we want to highlight to the Guyanese people is that there's a cost to blackouts. There's a cost to not having stable power generation. If the project is significantly delayed, then you're going to see a major cost to the Guyanese economy. We've spoken in the past about the costs of blackouts to the Guyanese economy, giving you some estimates and so on, which we can, if you'd like, we can send those to you. But essentially, these costs are starting to pile up, and we must always bear in the back of our mind that when we originally began speaking about this project, what was it, a few $100 million was the original price. I think it was, yeah, 300-400 million
400, about
at the
400.
time. So this is becoming quite an undertaking, and it as the costs continue to pile up, we become more and more concerned about this project.
And from Mr. Holder, sir, in your opening statement, you talked a lot about infrastructure development. And that's all well and good. That's what's happening now. The reality, though, is that you would need support staff to promote that program. And I'm up on this, the state of education, which is producing a lot of inadequately trained or unqualified people. Is there a program to boost that section of any development program, the education system, to support these plans that you have?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Adam. Certainly, our education system is not on par. We will certainly have to look at that. In fact, over the last few weeks, we have been considering exactly what you're saying. We're actually working on a policy position in that area. But look, infrastructure, the PNC has very good track record. I understand what you're saying. We're now looking to take infrastructure to a whole new level. But in the past, when the country was just developing in the 60s and 70s, we developed a track record of undertaking major infrastructural project. You would know, Adam, that we did the Harbor Bridge in that decade of development, what we call the decade of development. The Harbor Bridge, we did highways from Borbis all the way down to Georgetown and down over to Region 3. We did the Linden Highway. We did the multilateral schools project. We have a track record of handling these projects and doing them properly. The PPP, however, doesn't have a track record. They would have been at the helm for 23 plus 4, 27 years of the last 32 years, and they don't have a track record in the area of infrastructure. And I think that is why they're pushing now to try to do as much project. Since they have oil money, they're looking to do as much project to sort of develop a record. Unfortunately for them, in that mad rush, in that push, corruption, the only thing that they would have on their slate is corruption, poorly undertaken projects, and ill-designed projects, or ill-informed in terms of the design and the layout of those projects. That is what they're actually developing over the last 4 years. So we know how to handle these projects. Of course, we will have to work. You're absolutely right. We'll have to work to develop our education, develop our training, and we're considering those facts.
Adam, we also want to point out that you're now seeing the government say, as you're talking about the importance of education, you're now seeing the government say that they're going to mandate more time for mathematics study. Adam, the government is operating as if they're somehow shocked that you've got a 31% pass rate in mathematics when it was 32% last year and 34% the year before. And when Minister Manichan was minister last time, I think it was 34%, 35%. It was around the same. And now the government is woken up to the fact that there's a serious mathematics problem in this country. How are we going to have the engineers that we need? How are we going to have that base that you're talking about if we don't deal seriously with the mathematics issue? Now, that's the first. And the second thing is, of course, you've seen the education budget increase, but the pass rates decline. It is very difficult to spend much more money, far more money, and have worse results. And yet here we are with the PUP. So now they're scrambling at the last minute to try to fix an issue that they should have been focused on from the very beginning. Of course, we would also have seen that under the coalition, we saw far better pass rates in mathematics. I think it's almost like 70% better, really high, much better performance rates. But even then, when the performance rates were 48% or around that region, that is not what we should be aiming for now. And we will be aiming to take it even further than that because Guyana has resources and we need to put those resources to good use. That's the first thing. The second is we recognize that when you look at the statistics, sadly, because of the long track record of people failing to perform well in mathematics, around about 80% of Guyana's population does not have math and English pass rates, math and English passes at CSEC. Of course, a large portion of the population has also dropped out of high school before they could even take those examinations. We have talked about a 50 for 50 program, $50,000 a month for 50,000 students. And one of the things that we want to see in that training program is people go and take their mathematics exams again so that they can open up new opportunities for them. We take seriously what is going on, and we believe that building out that foundation, that human capital foundation, is vital in terms of moving our country forward and ensuring that we avoid the calamitous governance, calamitous projects that we're seeing under this government. We're not suddenly waking up to the fact that there is a problem. We've been talking for years now about these concerns, and we're going to deal with them seriously when in office.
Yeah, thanks, Elson. If I can add, Elson struck the hammer on the nail there. I was shocked to see or to learn that the government, via Priya Manichan, the Minister of Education, is now focused on doing a study or collecting data on schools that have pit latrine, that still have pit latrine after 4 years of oil money. Rather than focus on the mathematics and the English, as Elson rightfully said. Look, they should be focusing on why about 2/3 of the students who wrote CXC don't have more than 5 subjects, grade 1 to 3. They should worry. They should be very, very worried why the pass rate for mathematics moved from around 48% under our government to back down to in the 30s. Now it's 31, as Elson pointed out. Something is definitely wrong, and the budget has increased. I don't know how many times over, and they boast about these things. They boast about although I think they're being untruthful. Priya Manichan usually boasts that APNU never built any schools and all these, and we never had smart classrooms. Well, with all the smart classrooms and the schools that they're building, the mathematics grade and all the grades are going down. They seem to prefer to focus on the top 1%, those getting the 29 subjects, 20 to 29 subjects at CXC, and they parade them around the country and they put them on billboard. Kudos to them. They have worked hard, and we must give them a round of applause, those students. But it is very, very disheartening to see how they're trying to sort of trick the population into believing that all is well in the education sector. Much more needs to be done, and I guarantee you, Adam, and the public that we will focus heavily. A significant part of our national budget will go towards education and training. That's the way how you will get a country to move upward.
And Adam, it would be remiss of us to say that in the midst of these many years of difficult pass rates and the need for investment in education, you've got a government that is refusing to engage meaningfully with teachers and to give them a substantial raise. This is a classic example of where investing in our teachers would give us a disproportionate and excellent return. We want to incentivize teachers. We want to make life comfortable for teachers. We want to train teachers so that we can get better results. This is vital to the country. But instead, we're seeing the opposite, where teachers have to strike in order to get a reasonable, any kind of increase. And when the increase is offered, it's not even a significant increase. And this all coming, as my colleague said, in the context of budgets with oil revenues available, where the budget has tripled in a short space of time. It really is tragic But sadly, I don't think we're too surprised that this is the way the PUP is operating.
If I can add again, this is a conversation we must have, and so the Guyanese people must know what is really happening in this country. I'm happy that Elson raised it. In 2016, if I can recall correctly, the budget was just around 230 billion dollars. Under the APNU AFC, we were able to give to our teachers a 10% increase. Before that, prior to that, the PPP used to give them around 5-6%, sometimes even as low as 2 and 3%. We gave a whopping 10% with a budget of just around $232 billion. Now, in 2024, 8 years later, almost a decade later, with a budget 5 times larger, you want to give the teachers at the same 10% with an increased cost of living. You know how much for the basic food items, things like oil. Look, 8 years ago, we used to pay, you could ask any housewife, they used to pay about $1,200 for sack of rice. Do you know what is the cost of it now? Around $2,800 for a sack of rice. It means that that basic food item, the cost of it would have doubled. Oil, the same thing. We used to pay about around that same amount, about $1,200 for a big bottle oil, a gallon of oil. Now it is about 2,800 or 3,000. Maybe, it's ridiculous. Flour, everything has increased. Everything has increased. People are struggling in this country, and they are refusing to give a proper increase so that people could get by, people could live a comfortable life. They have the means to do it. Every time there is a problem in certain sectors where they think they would lose votes, they run out and they give billions of dollars. They suddenly can find that money to go out there. Look, today I'm told, I was in the Northwest region over the last week. I'm told that they're distributing $100,000 in Mabruma area. You know what they're telling those persons there? That, look, you gotta vote for us, and we can give you a 500,000 when we coming back. They can find those money. The point I'm making, that once it suits them politically, it works for them politically, they can find those monies to do whatever they have to do. But when it comes to our public servants and the ordinary Guyanese, they don't have money to do it. They have money for the boys, some corrupt projects. They're looking to do all kinds of infrastructural projects and hand it out to their friends and families. And they have money to do that, but they don't have money to pay our teachers. We have said, I believe in the last press conference, the leader of the opposition said that we're looking right now at giving in our first budget around a 35% increase. That would be a substantial increase, not only for teachers but across the board for our public servants. We did it in the past. We were able to give huge increases. I think overall we gave about 77% increases. We targeted the persons at the bottom, those who are making 39,000 something per month. Next to nothing, those people, cleaners, and those poor people, a lot of them women, single parents, we gave them substantial increase, and today they benefit from those increases. Unfortunately, the government has not managed the economy properly, and we're faced with a lot of inflation and with a rising cost of living, especially in the area of food items and travel, transportation costs, and costs for house rent, and all these other things. People are still finding it difficult. Now that you have oil money, they can do much more. We will do much more. When we get government next year, we will do much more. We've proven that we will support the people at the bottom, and that is exactly what we will do as the next government.
At this time, if there is any final question on the participant, I'll take that now.
Yeah, sorry, one more and I'm gone. Mr. Holder, infrastructure. I was a teenager when we built the suicide Linden highway. From feasibility feasibility study to construction took 2 years. That project started in 66, completed in 69. It cost 17 million US dollars. Okay, inflation. Today, I want to suspect we are resurfacing that road, although they said rebuilding, for 161 million US dollars. My question is, has the opposition looked at the project and done an analysis of what the actual cost should have been?
Oh, thank you, Adam. Look, we're currently looking at it. I was startled that with the cost, and we're currently looking at it. You know, we've always said and thought that at this point, they would build a double lane highway there. Um, so when we saw the cost, we assumed that it was a double lane rather than a single lane. Now we're learning from the president and Juan Ejil that it's a single lane. And yes, they are saying or giving the impression that they're building a new road. But as far as we understand, they're just resurfacing. Maybe they have to do a little work below and some other works, but basically they're resurfacing. That is the understanding that we have. So we are looking at it. We look at it, but it is very, very disappointing that they are building a lane road. I believe the leader of the opposition said countless times at countless press conferences that there is a need now for us to build a double lane road there. If you have a double lane road to the north of that, you're building a double lane road on the east bank, and then you're going into that bottleneck. This is the artery, a main artery in the country. It's a long road going to a town, the mining town of Linden, where much economic activities is undertaken, and there is much potential there. You're passing Linden, you're building another major highway to the south, going to the Rupununi, where you have an existing double road, two-lane road there built by the coalition. And you expect that that road will lead into Brazil, which will facilitate a lot of trade, a lot of economic activities. You could imagine that a lot of traffic will come from Brazil eventually, even as our oil and gas industry advances in the next 5 years. So it is puzzling why they are just going to resurface that road or just going to do a single lane road there. The leader of the opposition suggested that you do the parallel, do another lane parallel, and then you could come back and repair that one, as we suspect they're doing, and you will end up with a double lane road. Look, these guys are just thinking about corruption. They're not into doing feasibility studies. You know, one time Jagdeo said that all that PNC like to do is feasibility studies, but that is what gave us the track record of doing proper projects. We did that road, as you rightfully outlined, in the 60s, and it's still standing there. I'm told that it had a lifespan of about 20 years, and when they came to power in 92, there were funds available, or we were already engaging to have the funds available to do a proper road there. The funds were available there, and they neglected it. They neglected it, and they just push Linden aside. So now for them to come and have this big fanfare like they're doing some kind of service for the people or some favor to the people of Linden, it is ridiculous. It is long overdue. Long overdue. They spent, I don't have the figures here, but they spent some money just a few years ago doing some repairs. But since they came in, they should have looked back at our proposal and get to business, get to work immediately. But now, because we're getting into an election cycle, they know Linden is critical, then they want to go there and say to the people of Linden that we're doing you this favor. I saw was it Irfan or Ejil speaking, Irfan, the president, talking about jobs. you know, how much 100 jobs for Linden, but he's talking about jobs at the airport at Timeri. So maybe Linden begins at Timeri. I don't know what caused him to think that persons in Linden will go and take up jobs at a hotel in Timeri. I don't know if he understands the distance there, or you know, it just doesn't make sense. But it is what it is. We expect to get government next year, and we will have to correct all these issues. We have already committed that we will be building a double lane, a um, a 4 lane highway there, and that is what we will do once we get into office.
Thank you
And Adam, we
very
want to
much.
make just a couple clarifying points here. When you listen to Jaguar speak about feasibility studies, you get the impression that he doesn't seem to understand that you can do 10 studies simultaneously. Once you hire people to do the studies, hire competent people, bring in international firms, you get the impression Jaguar thinks that we ourselves, me and Sherwin, are going to sit down. But that perhaps is because that's the way the PP operates, which is how they chose the way to fight. Anyway, the point is we will bring in expertise to carry out these studies. We'll be able to do that at scale and therefore be able to carry out a lot of projects at scale. That's the first thing we want to know. The second thing is when it comes to a 2 lane instead of a 4 lane, 2 lane is like highway. You'd think that the person's having all this confidence in Silica City and all of this confidence in their development plans and so on. You would have known that they need more access. One of the concerns that was raised from the Diamond housing project was that created a huge traffic jam on the East Bank Road. And so even if that, those projects are successful that they're talking about, that would create a traffic jam as my colleague here mentioned. So again, it is a difference between believing that we should think before we act and just acting.
Thank you very much. At this time, I wish to thank our media personnel for joining today's press, and of course, our viewing audience on all our social media platforms. Thank you, and do have a wonderful weekend.